Well, while they're figuring this out, first, let me just say, hey, it's kind of really thrilling to be the final speaker at this year's 70th annual General Semantics Ecology of Mind, Media, and Meaning. And I want to thank Land Strait so much for yet another spectacular weekend. And also, yeah, right? It's so great to be among so many friends and colleagues and heroes. And and especially a big shout out to you guys from the Festival 404. It's been a real thrill to have you guys aboard. So welcome. All right.
My name is Marshall. Oh no, that's not the first time I've done that. My name is Marcel, and I'm partially a shell, as you can see on my body, but I also have shoes and a face, so I like that about myself, and I like myself, and I have a lot of other great qualities as well. But I didn't know that you were going to have a camera, and I wish that you had said that you were going to be here today, because I didn't clean up. I invited some friends from upstate to make salad, so let's just have Richard. Guess what I wear as a hat? A lentil. One time I nibbled on a piece of cheese and my cholesterol went up to 900. Guess what I used to tie my skis to my car? The hair. Guess what my skis are? Toenails from me. Do you want to see me talk on the phone? Hello, this is me. What? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Oh, yeah. Well, I do it. Yes. What? It would be my pleasure. Yeah, I did. That aside, I forgot to write a note. Thank you so much. Guess what I use as a beanbag chair? A raisin. Guess what I do for adventure? I hang glide on a Dorito. Guess what I use as a pen? I use a pen, but it takes the whole family. I'm afraid to drink soda because I'm afraid the bubbles will make me float up onto the ceiling. Okay, my one regret in life is that I'll never have a dog. But sometimes I tie a hair to a piece of lint and I drag it around. One time I smelled the smell from an old tennis sneaker and it knocked me right out. One time I looked at a diamond and it gave me a sunburn. His name is Alan. Guess where I found him? Under a tooth. Well, you know what they say. Flint is a shell's best friend.
Today, I'd like to speak on Marcel. Not Marcel Duchamp, Marcel Proust, Marcel Marceau, but Marcel the Shell, as read through McLuhan's Laws of Media, Ellul's Three Milieus, Korzybski Time Binding, addressing the relationship of media and interpersonal aspects of change, loss, grief, connection, and technological adaptation. Self-reflexive and defamiliarizing, the 2022 90-minute stop-motion animated mockumentary Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, written and voiced by comedian Jenny Slate and Nick Paley, directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, and based on the three short 2010 viral videos of the same name, centers on an anthropomorphized talking hermit crab shell named Marcel with one googly eye, two pink shoes, and lives with his nana, Connie, and a pet ball of lint in an Airbnb, mourning the loss of his family who have mysteriously disappeared, and speaks to aspects of retribalization and the complexities surrounding the need for community within a digital age. With a literal shout out to McLuhan from an ironic mispronunciation of the very first line, "My name is Marshall," the film proceeds through a series, of both literal and metaphorical proby puns, all shell shocked where he shells, she shells by the shore, showing how partially a shell, a shawl, a shield, soft shoes through differentially facial, multiracial, spatial, potentials, residential, existential, technopolies, as socially jouissance, submitting to use a Lil's phrase, technical efficiency and resystemization. Marked by whimsicality and resourcefulness, the film media ecologically enacts how indeed we shape our tools and therefore after our tools shape us. Gathering resources from the house and the yard, the 1 inch tall protagonist, both figuratively and literally, stands on the shoulders of giants and lives mythically. Technopoetically actualizing how and in what ways our age of anxiety is in great part a result of trying to do today's jobs with yesterday's tools. And as Marcel's tools were his family, in the wake of their absence, he had to adapt everyday objects to survive, literally in McLuhan's terms, becoming extensions of himself. Throughout the 90-minute film and three precursor shorts, Marcel moves through Elul's three milieus, the natural, their habitat, and Airbnb rental with constantly shifting squatters, allowing them for years to go unnoticed, the social, Dean, the documentarian, and Marcel's dementia-addled Nana Connie, who literally over the course of the film amuses herself to death, and the technical reorienting systems within the limits of his environment. Marcel shows us, see how I use the phone, as he dances, stomps on the keys of a cell phone to answer, make calls, or accesses the internet, reads receipts of um, uh, reads receipts as a marker of consumerist culture so he can get a read on society and thick hardcover works of literature 50 times his size by running his little shoes across the oversized pages to turn them, in Lewell's terms, addressing technical questions with technical solutions, offering a kind of counter environment, re envisioning and adopting the dominant technological ecology. These everyday extensions, with their innovative utility, not only make life more efficient, but is reminiscent of the Jewish tradition of how, after reading a parsha, or especially on Simchas Torah, after completing the cycle of readings, one holds up the Torah scrolls, which is passed from person to person, providing everyone the opportunity to be the Torah's feet. As such, literally exposing how the materiality of the world is always already an extension of man. And speaking of feet, Marcel's car is a tennis ball. And like how for McLuhan, the car has become the carapace, the protective and aggressive shell of urban and suburban man, ironically being a shell, Marcel is the carapace through which he aggressively negotiates both suburban and urban landscapes, transporting him into new worlds of meaning, being, and seeing. This sense of seeing differently is particularly evident in that Marcel only has one eye. For McLuhan, in the land of the blind, the one eyed man is a hallucinating idiot, for he sees what no one else does, things that to everyone else are not there. Certainly, throughout the film and video, one eyed Marcel not only sees what no one else does, but adapts, reverses, retrieves, and enhances an environment for continual evolution, transformation, and change. Further highlighted in how Korzybski terms, there is no such thing as an object in absolute isolation, or Postman's focus on interdependence and cooperation, when Dean, the filmmaker, who's renting the property, discovered that Marcel's family has been abducted, creates a viral YouTube documentary, which eventually garners the interest of the cast of 60 Minutes in an attempt to digitally foster community. However, what happens is, instead of actively helping Marcel in his quest, the mass of digital recipients narcissistically take selfies outside his home, not so interested in mobilizing search parties, but garnering reactions on their social media platforms. Thus, the film is an ironic commentary on the nature of social media, exposing how the social network is only interested in its own amplification, how we're all drowning in a sense of ersatz significance that thwarts one's ability to focus, analyze, filter, or synthesize information, short circuits thinking, renders one context blind without patience or ability to sift through complex issues, yet has become site of toxic addition, powerfully illustrating how, through a scrambling of relations, not only does the message never fully arrive, but how there's always, as Shannon might say, noise in the system. But most crucially, the film underscores that no matter how tribally connected we think we are, social media is increasingly dividing us, a global village of a self involved, open secret screaming to be heard, poignantly highlighted when Marcel blurts out, "This is an audience, not a community." Further, the viral engagement of the anonymous masses reduces Marcel to a mere image, in similar ways to how disinformation condenses and distorts reality. How content through a series of biased data becomes a condensation of information and social narratives, triggering instant reactions, and like how the fragmentation of content becomes a central value in the dissemination of information, though marked with the characteristics of journalistic coverage, but operating from a selfie consumed narcissistic perspective, reminds us how data gets lost in the information maelstrom, adopted for social actors' own pleasure and use with no allegiance or fidelity to an origin, politics, purpose, or agenda. In the words of Lady Gaga, we're far from the shallow now. Etymologically, a shell from Old English related to Dutch scale. Much of the humor of Marcel's shell stems from the highlighting of his diminutive stature in relation to his environment, i.e., he, like his hairbrush, also has an oversized head. Further from the Proto Indo European shell is to split, cleave, as Marcel's family members, loved ones, and peers were violently ripped from an emergency shelter, commonly known as a sock drawer. He was literally split, torn, removed from his family, remaining in postman's terms, a living message sent to a time that his parents cannot see. And as such cleaves to his environment, cleaves as a kind of fish in water, reorienting within his medium. Diving deeper into an etymological reading from the Proto-Albanian shell, stella means to bloom, open, sprout. And as such, Marcel exposes how from this splitting he blooms, opens himself to new levels of acceptance, learning to deal with ever shifting realities, the loss of his family, the death of his grandmother, the arrival of a giant dog. This sense of otherness is further underscored in that from the Proto Germanic shell means difference, and as a one eyed, armless, differently abled being of diminutive stature, he embraces his subalternity in the Druidian sense of being differing and deferring through a series of micro narratives. Marcel not only splits, cleaves, blooms, differentially wandering from his breadroom to his tennis ball car, or dipping himself in honey to reach higher and higher levels through re-technologized environments. But in Korzybskian terms, he's increasingly negotiating not things, but events, appreciating how identity environment, a dynamic process in constant flux, a hybridized and syncretic ecology of conflictual components. So in a nutshell, though, according to Postman, when a population becomes distracted by trivia, when cultural life is defined by in a perpetual round of entertainments, when serious conversation becomes a form of baby talk, then a nation finds itself at risk. however voiced in actual baby talk, punctuated by the immediacy and deterritorialization echoic of digital technologies with a focus on adaptation in the wake of ever-shifting mediatic environments. Marcel, the shell with shoes on, exposes how baby talk does not lead to the death of culture, but rather a reevaluation of cultural sensoria sanity, where in Postman's terms, we measure our days not by an output of undisguised trivialities, but what we claim as significant, and through a meta-mediated time-space binding enterprise wrought through generations of inheritance, progression, and revolution, embrace a symbiotechnosis celebrating the tensions, inventions, dissensions, and the extensions of man. Thank you. Thank you very much.